What is up? Good morning and welcome to Monday's Hangxiety. This is Club Fantasy's weekly recap show where we go over the past weekend's action and tell you when it is time to panic and when it is time to chill the fuck out. And if you tuned in for the very end of last week's episode, we also accurately predict the games because I said Philadelphia blowout, Kansas City by 3. You're welcome if you put any action on that one. Speaking of Philadelphia blowout, the man of the hour, Joshua Hudson, up with the birds. How you doing, baby?
EAGLES Eagles. Yes, I have no voice and I don't care, but I'm hyped as fuck. And I had to get my boy Michael on. He's also an Eagles fan. Appreciate you coming on, buddy. This is going to be a lot of fun talking a lot of shit on the 49ers this morning.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Glad to be on here, man. It's a good thing to talk shit about the 49ers and how horrible Brock Purdy is. I'm always up for that. But unlike you, Josh, like I like to take the approach, act like we've been here before, because unlike Dallas fans, we have been here before.
Yeah.
So, it's becoming kind of commonplace for me. I didn't think as an Eagles fan for the longest time I'd be able to say that. So we're almost morphing into the Patriots here. It's kind of crazy.
I don't want to go that far, but
man, I didn't realize what I was stepping in this morning.
In terms of people hating us, yes, I'll go that far, but not.
They hate us worse.
Michael, before we get rocking, go ahead and let everybody know who you are, what you do, and where they can find your work.
Well, if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can see here on there. You can follow me at Iowa Michael. I wouldn't recommend it. It's most of me just taking jabs at Brock Purdy all day. that's pretty much all I do anymore. But you can check out our YouTube page. We just hit 1,000 subscribers, which is pretty cool. So I'm trying to work on not saying bad words all the time and getting demonetized right out the gate. So new year, new me.
We're not monetized yet, so you can have all the fun you want on this show.
The South Harbor Fantasy Football.
You come over here to have the unfiltered fun, Mike.
Unfiltered. Other than that, 4D Chess Dynasty Football Podcast comes out every Friday on Destination Devi's radio network. So that's where you can catch all their stuff. Like I said, Twitter follow is probably a bad idea, so not recommended.
Yeah, hey, at least you're honest about it. All right, guys, before we get into the games, let's talk about some coaching stuff. So first and foremost, the Panthers have hired former Colts head coach Frank Reich as their new head coach, continuing the NFL cycle of recycling white coaches. He got a 4-year deal there. The Jets have named Nathaniel Hackett of Broncos infamy as their new offensive coordinator. The Rams have added Mike LaFleur, offensive coordinator. Vic Fangio accepts the Dolphins defensive coordinator job, and the most perfectly written sentence ever. The Cowboys and offensive coordinator Kellen Moore have mutually agreed to part ways. So, Josh, with all of this, you put these news and notes in here. I feel like there's a lot of fantasy implications with this. I'm going to let you go wherever you want, but I want to start with, I don't know that we were ever really excited about the Jets offense, but we were certainly excited about Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. Is that brought down a notch, or do we think Nathaniel Hackett can be a functioning offensive coordinator again?
I mean, functioning, I guess. It's really just going to depend on what they do at quarterback. I mean, if this is another round of we're going to hire Nathaniel Hackett to make sure that we get Aaron Rodgers this offseason, then sure, maybe it works for the Jets. But, if they're stuck rolling into next season with Zach Wilson again, then it's really not going to matter who their offensive coordinator is because Zach Wilson just ain't it. So, and I don't view Hackett as somebody that's going to groom and coach up Zach Wilson. He doesn't have a history of doing that with any young quarterbacks. I mean, he took a young-ish Blake Bortles to a really, really good season in Jacksonville back in 2017. But outside of that, what have any of his offensives done? They've been in the bottom 12 in offensive efficiency rankings, you name it. Every single year he's been an offensive coordinator when he doesn't have Aaron Rodgers. And let's be honest, he wasn't calling plays in Green Bay.
Yeah.
That was Matt LaFleur. So, it really doesn't do much of anything for me. I'm still going to bet on the talent when it comes to guys like Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, but I'm not going to overinflate their value simply because, Hackett makes a difference one way or the other.
Michael, anything to add to that? Any of the other coaches you want to talk about?
I mean, if you think about it, though, what are they going from? They're going from Mike LaFleur, who is horrible calling plays, to Nathaniel Hackett. So is it really up or down? Probably more of a lateral move. I guess the only really interesting thing about it is that we're going to start this saga of, is Aaron Rodgers getting traded to the Jets? And this is going to be prevalent until we find out he's not getting traded to the Jets or whatever they decide to do. So as far as the weapons, doesn't really matter. I mean, there's another guy on the list you already put on there. The shitty coordinator is going back to the Rams to get a little more seasoning under Sean McVay. So hopefully his second stint around is a little bit better than his first stint as an offensive coordinator, because it was god awful.
I will say I do like the Mike LaFleur to the Rams. One of our how to fix series that we're working on at Club Fantasy. I'm tackling the Rams, and like I started writing this article last week before they named the offensive coordinator, and LaFleur was my pick to head back there. He has familiarity with McVay. The systems they run are very similar. But the one thing that I like is LaFleur can game plan a run game. And I feel like that's where McVay and the Rams truly struggled last year with an inefficient offensive line. LaFleur can introduce a lot more zone running concepts that McVay doesn't run. He prefers more of a gap scheme. And those zone runs with the one cut and go, that's Cam Akers' strength. So I think that bringing Mike LaFleur in just to help game plan, because we know that McVay is going to call the plays, I do like this hire for the Rams. So, and like you said, Michael, it's getting more seasoning. And I think that's what he needs. I mean, he went from, going from a quarterback coach to immediately calling plays as an OC with the Jets. This way he's still an offensive coordinator. So, it's a lateral move in that sense, but he doesn't have to worry about calling the plays. He can learn from somebody like a Sean McVay, who quite honestly, in my opinion, calls a much better game than Kyle Shanahan could ever dream of. So
last one I want you guys to jump in on is the Kellen Moore thing. So it's looking like, regardless of who the offensive coordinator is going to be, Mike McCarthy is going to go back to playing play calling, Michael. So how do we feel about the Cowboys offense, which, if you've tuned into the show for any period of time, you know that I overproject the Cowboys offense every single year. How do we feel now with Mike McCarthy, who I remember when he first came to the Cowboys, the whole thing was he took a year off and found analytics, and he was a man of analytics now. But then immediately Kellen Moore took over the offense, so we don't even know who the fuck Mike McCarthy is at this point. So, Mike, what are your expectations with Mike McCarthy taking back over play calling in Dallas?
I'm happy as an Eagles fan. I'm happy as an Eagles fan.
Right.
Not that Kellen Moore was something fantastic, but he did draw up and scheme up some pretty good plays. I do think it's kind of ironic the last play you're going to remember of Kellen Moore calling the Cowboys games is Zeke at center and getting trucked.
We said that last week that it might be Zeke's last play as a Cowboy too, and that's what we're going to remember.
I actually think it's probably a step back for the offense as a whole, losing Kellen Moore, going to Mike McCarthy. But after their disastrous playoff showing, which we've all become accustomed to, I think Mike knows his job's starting to get on the line here. So if this is the personnel move that he wants to make to be like, I got this, he's going to go down with the ship. So it's good for us, good for Eagles fans. I don't think it's anything better for the offense, but that offense has so many other holes that they need to fix. They need to find another receiver. They need to figure out what they're doing with the running back situation, whether they're bringing Zeke back, whether they can afford to bring Tony Pollard back, whatever the case may be. I think it's a downgrade for the Cowboys offense, and I think your projections should lower down.
I'm going to try. I promise I'm going to try. It's going to be Jacksonville I overblow this year. We already discovered. Josh, I don't recall in recent times seeing a guy like Kellen Moore his name was floated in some of these head coaching searches, and then the team he's with fires him. Like, I don't
know. They
mutually
like agreed to part ways, right?
Yeah, so they fired him. And it's just weird to me that, like, you have this, for lack of a better term, asset that other teams want, and you're just like, yeah, bro, you can get the fuck out of here. We're done with you. Like, that's a strange.
Yeah, I think this is going to end up being this will be McCarthy's swan song, right? I don't know if he's going to go back to calling the plays, but if he does, yeah, this is going to be his last year as the head coach. He was not very good calling plays down the stretch with Green Bay. And I think what made him more attractive as the Cowboys head coach when he took over was that he kept the system in place, like what Kellen Moore was running with Jason Garrett at the helm, and McCarthy was able to be hands off. The moment he starts being more hands on in this offense, I think is going to be their death, honestly. Like, you know, some coaches, and I think this is what Sirianni did really well. Like, you know, he started calling plays when he took over in Philly. There was a lot of up and downs with it, right? And then he basically said, you know what, I'm going to be a head coach. I'm going to let Steichen take over. He's going to call the plays. He's going to do his thing, and I'm going to be a head coach. And I feel like that shows a level of maturation from a head coach that we don't really see from a lot of these young guys that ultimately end up taking over roles like that. And McCarthy, all right, he handed off the play calling, said, you know what, Moore, you're doing a great job. Things are going great. Stick with it. And that to me showed, all right, you took that year off and you learned your lesson. So to me, it's going to be really interesting to see what direction they go at offensive coordinator, because I want to see if he's going to take that step back or if he's going to continue to grow as a head coach and say, you know what, there's a reason these guys come in and they're offensive coordinators. Let them do their job and call plays.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Michael, any final thoughts on the coaching moves from last week?
I do a little bit about the Frank Reich thing. It's going to be kind of interesting to see if Frank Reich can actually get a quarterback for once. If you think about it, his entire time, his claim to fame is taking Nick Foles and turning him into a Super Bowl champion. So a lot of people put the credit with Doug Peterson. We saw what Doug Peterson did with the Jags. Like, yes, but Frank Reich is a good coach, a great offensive coordinator, offensive mind. He did have some questionable things that he did in Indianapolis, but I'm kind of willing to give him a pass. Like, his usage of JT at times was frustrating, to say the least. Not getting him involved in the receiving game when we've seen that he's a very capable receiver. But I will be interested to see if they get a quarterback in Carolina, what Frank Reich can do with an actual real quarterback, not 90-year-old Phillip Rivers, not Carson Wentz. And
we never saw him with the opportunity to develop anything in Indianapolis. So
yeah, you had a past way past the prime Matt Ryan, basically dust, and then whatever the hell Sam Ellinger is. I don't know if it's a quarterback, but it's a
something.
It's a person.
Well, and keep in mind too, the Panthers did draft Matt Corral or Coral, however you pronounce his last name. He sat on IR all of this year, but like, you know, he was a 3rd round pick. I'm not really expecting much of anything, but with them sitting at, I believe it's pick 9 in the NFL draft, like, they're going to have to give up prime resources if they want to move up to get a quarterback. And I don't know that this team is truly in a position that they're one quarterback away. So, you know, maybe they consider bringing Sam Darnold back for a year, you know, just kind of play it out, try to develop Coral. If all goes wrong this year, maybe, you know, they get that high pick in 2024 when honestly it's a better quarterback class. And I think that's really where this team needs to figure out where they're at in the long game.
And let's not forget their division is trash. So
exactly.
They literally
they were one game away from the playoffs with fucking Sam Darnold at quarterback. So
they literally could be one quarterback away from being
from a playoff,
at least winning the division. I agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
But going any further than that is a different story.
All right, Josh, before we get into this weekend's action, let the people know who the sponsor is.
Yes, sir. Monday's Hangxiety brought to you by Manscaped. Manscaped is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped recently launched the ultimate men's hygiene bundle, the Performance Package. The Performance Package includes the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, the Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, the Crop Preserver groin deodorant, the Crop Reviver toner, Performance Boxer briefs, and a travel bag to hold all of your goodies. So join over 5 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer. Head over to manscaped.com at checkout. Use promo code CLUBFANTASY. Get yourself 20% off and free shipping. They have so many goodies, not just the Performance Package themselves. They actually just launched a beard trimmer as well, which, as you can see, I definitely kind of need. Mike, maybe you need a little trimming up yourself. Just throwing that out there. But head over to manscaped.com. Use promo code ClubFantasy at checkout. Save yourself 20%. Get free shipping at manscaped.com.
And one of the things Josh typically hits on is these are waterproof and very easy to clean. And for a beard trimmer, that's something fantastic because there is nothing more annoying than cleaning out a beard trimmer. Like, it's just not the way I like to start my day. So that's it, guys. Let's jump into the weekend's action. And Josh, they started you off early. You were the first game this week. The Philadelphia Eagles boat raced the San Francisco 49ers. Sans any great quarterback, 31-7. It was not a good week to be a San Francisco 49ers fan.
I'm really disappointed. I wanted this game to be the primetime game because, as we'll find out a little bit later, I don't really remember much from the Bengals-Chiefs game because I was high on life at that point. So I wish this game would have been the night game. I probably would have paid more attention to Chiefs-Bengals.
We'll send Roger an email next year to let him know that for the content of
the
show,
you have to consider the fans here, people.
Yeah, you always have to be the last game. You guys know the segments by now. We're starting off with the hangover. It's the biggest head scratcher of the weekend, and it gets to be me, and it gets to be something we spent way too long talking about last week. How does A.J. Brown not cook? Josh hit you with all the statistics last week about how the 49ers struggle against outside wide receivers. We saw receivers beat them. We saw CeeDee Lamb beat them up in a loss, but still beat them up. This was supposed to be the game. We called it last week where I look like a fucking idiot for telling people to be worried about A.J. Brown. Instead, we get 4 catches for 28 yards on 8 targets, team leader in targets, if I remember correctly. Obviously, the Eagles were in control for much of this game, but I'm going to go back and reiterate my point. Obviously, we have very early mock draft data to talk about. A.J. Brown is not a second-round pick. He does not give me that kind of consistency. And Michael, I don't know. Josh was okay with me saying this last week. I don't know if you're going to want to fight me on this. I don't think A.J. Brown should be going before CeeDee Lamb in fantasy drafts next year. I just don't think that should be happening, Michael.
Right. I'm in agreement with you, man, and I'm an Eagles homer. A.J. Brown is fantastic in his own right, so let's not take 100%. It away.
You weren't here last week. That was all I'm talking about is fantasy, not him on the field. He is a revelation on the field.
He's almost one of those players that's better at football than he is for fantasy purposes.
Absolutely.
Not that he's horrible for fantasy, but I'm in agreement, man. I could be the Cowboys hater, but fantasy is where my butter's bred. So
I like it.
So bread gets buttered, however the saying goes. But anyways, it goes.
I need those carbs in my life.
As far as fantasy goes, I would definitely take CeeDee Lamb before I would take A.J. Brown. That goes for redraft. That goes for Dynasty, which I'm big into. CeeDee Lamb's pretty clear. Wide receiver 3 for me in Dynasty after the other 2 guys. The guys that are on different levels. So
LSU boys.
The problem a little bit that you're going to have with CeeDee Lamb is it's kind of the same thing that we have with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, right? They're both phenomenal. They have 2 phenomenal receivers and only 1 football to throw to each of them. So the difference is, I think when you look at Jalen Hurts versus Joe Burrow is not going to take off and try to run for 100 yards a game, or he's not going to be doing all the goal line work and being so busy down in the red zone, where he's going to be more of that point guard, that distributor to get the ball to T and Jamar Chase, which is why both of them can have increased fantasy value. You're going to run into that problem on the Eagles offense where you have Smitty, who's fantastic. You have A.J. Brown, who's fantastic. You have Dallas Goedert, who's fantastic. And then you have a mobile running quarterback who's a big part of the offense with his legs. So it becomes hard to say, oh, yeah, you should take A.J. Brown in the second round as the wide receiver 3. Maybe in spirit, if you're a giant Eagles fan like one of us, Josh, maybe you do it just because you want a piece of A.J. Brown. But the smart move is to not take A.J. Brown of CeeDee Lamb. I'm with you on this one. This is pretty easy for me. CeeDee Lamb.
I'm curious to see how those thoughts might change on CeeDee Lamb depending on who ends up as the offensive coordinator in Dallas and also the play caller. I mean, I think that even if McCarthy ends up calling plays, you're fine taking Lamb where you're taking him. I mean,
I was going in and digging into my
Jordy Nelson and all those guys.
I was just gonna say I was going in and digging into my early projection models, and I'm coding McCarthy as the play caller right now, and that means heavy passing volume. So that could be great. So
yeah, I mean, I was a little perturbed that they didn't throw near as much, but when you really sit down and you watch this game, they didn't need to. I mean, Jalen Hurts only had 120 some odd passing
yards.
yards. Like,
let's talk about you being perturbed because longtime listener, longtime caller, Joel Worth chimed in and wants to know if, like last week, you were going to chastise your Eagles for taking the foot off the gas when the San Francisco 49ers had literally nobody who could throw a football.
well, and I think that's ultimately why they did, right? I mean, for me, I was upset last week that they didn't keep their foot on the gas because you needed to show that you can compete with the big time, players in the NFC and even in the AFC, right? The teams that can score a ton of points. The Giants are the Giants. Are they a top 4 team in the NFC? Sure. But after the top 3, everybody else sucks. Let's be honest. So, putting up 38 on the Giants is all right, whatever. But then you hang 31 on supposedly the best defense in the NFL. I'm fine with that. Like, you didn't really need to go above and beyond at that point. Like, they're down to their 4th quarterback by the end of the game. Christian McCaffrey's the one with the freaking headset in his helmet. Like, they were that desperate for a passer at that point. So, sure, I would have loved to hang 45, 48 on him. You know what I mean? Like, sure, bring it. I'm all for the smoke, because all I heard all week long was how much better the San Francisco defense was over the Eagles offense or even the Eagles defense. And I didn't see it.
Completely agree. But in fairness, the San Francisco secondary played one of the better games I've seen a secondary play. Maybe all.
Oh no,
certainly
they showed up. Yeah, I mean, Charvarius Ward, he came to play. There were a couple times when Hurts was targeting Smith with Ward on him, and I'm like, why? That would be the one corner that I wouldn't want to throw at.
Yep. Like,
go to the other side. And then it's AJ Brown on the other side. Yes, AJ Brown, get him the fucking football. Like,
yeah, so they did very well. Next segment is the shot of espresso. It's the quality performance that got our juices flowing. Josh, take it away.
This happened literally on the first drive for me. 4th and 3.
No, you got super excited on the first drive of the game.
Completion to Devonta Smith. And this is the whole other thing with that I talk about all the time with Kyle Shanahan. He can design a great game plan. He is a fucking terrible head coach. Devonta Smith gets up after catching this football, doing this, hurrying the line to get there and call the next play. How do you not, as the opposing coach, see that and say, maybe I should throw the challenge flag? Even he doesn't think he caught that football. You have people sitting upstairs that are watching these replays that should be in your head or in your ear. Hey, you need to challenge his play. The very next possession for the 49ers, they have a questionable call. What happens? Sirianni makes that challenge. That's the difference in coaching. And really, that is what set the tone for this game. Sirianni was able and willing to make the plays and the calls that needed to be made to give his team juice. Kyle Shanahan did not.
Yeah, absolutely fair. Michael, you want to chime in on any of that?
Well, I think what gets overlooked here, what you're talking about, Josh, is, if you can go into the end of the first half there with all 3 of your timeouts, that really establishes the alpha, right? That really says, like, I'm the guy keeping these timeouts.
Because I can carry those 3 timeouts over to the second half.
I never understood why in the first half the coaches are always, it is across the league, but especially it was obvious in this game why they want to hold on to. You can't take them with you, use them. If something comes up, that's what you have the ability to throw a challenge for. Like, even if you miss out, who cares? It's a first half timeout. Nobody gives a shit.
Exactly.
But if you're wrong and you don't challenge, you see what happens, right? It sets up an early touchdown, change in momentum. That's a giant play going for it where they did. I mean, you could have really changed the outcome of the game right there, right? With different pass, but kind of impressive that Nick Sirianni, of all the shit that I've given him over the first couple of years up until this point, and how we just hold Kyle Shanahan in this esteem of this coach, Nick Sirianni is the one who outcoached Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I didn't think I'd be saying this ever. Especially, we go back, I saw on Twitter the introductory press conference on Nick Sirianni, and Josh, that was kind of cringeworthy at times, right?
Very cringeworthy.
Not as hilarious.
There was a lot of cringeworthy moments with Sirianni over the first 8 weeks as a head coach in Philly.
Well,
But
and
His
I love
pizza
this guy.
choices,
I will
his pizza
run through a
choices have been
wall with this
horrible.
guy.
well, I was gonna say, and then Sirianni, I saw somebody use the term has went down the realm of the bro coach, and like old schoolers hate it, but Philly fans have bought completely the fuck in. And clearly, Josh, you hit
He
on this last week or
embodies
the week
Philly.
before. I was gonna say, well, you hit on this last week or the week before. Regardless of whether old heads or the new people or the Philly fans bought in, the team bought in, and that's all that fucking matters.
Yep.
So
Him and Jalen Hurts are such a good match for each other. They really are, because like Jalen Hurts, and you see it like in every conference that he's in, he's very ball. Like it's what's in front of him on the football field. He's kind of that like Bill Belichick mindset, right? It's, on to the next opponent. It's, I'm going to take this seriously. And, he leads that way. And Sirianni, in a way, is kind of the antithesis. Like, he takes it seriously, but he still lets people know, like, you know what, this is ball. Like, you're allowed to have fun. And it really, like, to me, they really kind of balance each other out. And it works with this locker room. It 100% works because, you have the personalities like AJ Brown, where he's going to laugh, he's going to joke, he's going to have fun. But at the end of the day, when he steps on that football field, he wants the football and he wants to win. But again, in the locker room, it's all fun. It's all getting, and the same thing with Darius Slay, right? Those guys are going to have their fun in the locker room, but on the field, they're taking shit seriously because the guys that are leading this team, Sirianni and Hurts, they take it seriously.
Yeah.
And they preach that.
Yeah, I like it. The next segment is the title segment of the show. It is the chill the fuck out segment. And Michael, I know Josh gave you a breakdown of the show sheet. I'm going to let you get us started here. Just as a reminder, this can be a player wasn't as good as they looked this past weekend, or a player wasn't as bad as they looked this past weekend. Everybody just needs to chill the fuck out. Who is your candidate for the San Francisco 49ers Philadelphia Eagles game?
People need to chill the fuck out on Brock Purdy. Please. Please. Jeez.
I had a feeling this might be coming.
We've done this all year throughout all fantasy, dynasty, doesn't matter if you're following any type of content, Twitter, YouTube, these backup trash ass quarterbacks that we prop up and think are the greatest things ever. We did it with Taylor Heineke. We did it with Mike White. Now it's Brock Purdy's like the second coming. Oh, he's going to be the next Tom Brady. You just watch. I was watching Brock Purdy all season, and I thought he had the biggest rabbit's foot shoved up his ass that I've ever seen for any quarterback. There was 3 times in the Dallas game last week where he should have got picked off, but Dallas just can't catch. They got the Brucey hands. They bobble it. It goes all over the place. I knew that this week the Eagles were just going to get him. And I swear to you, Josh, I swear to you, I had this moment on that Hassan Reddick hit when they, for whatever reason, Kyle Shanahan thought it was a great idea that we're going to have Tyler fucking Kroft block Hassan Reddick and leave him on an island. Whatever was going through his brain when he thought that was a good thing. But when he hit him and that ball came out, I didn't see it that it was a fumble right away. And the ball goes up. And, of course, there's an Eagles defender ready to pick it off. And it just hits the ground. And I went, see, this damn rabbit's foot just going as a pain in my ass.
Oh, my God. I thought the exact same thing. I'm like, oh, we got it. This motherfucker got so lucky again. And then they showed the replay. I'm like, oh, shit, that's a fumble. That's our ball. Let's go, baby.
But they did the same thing in the Seattle game, right? I saw that clip over and over where he threw that deep pass to Juwan Jennings down the sideline, and he put it like 5 yards to the inside, and the safety doesn't even turn his head and look back, because if he just turns, oh, shit, there's a football. This is the easiest interception I'll ever have in my life. So I thought it was going to happen again, but Hassan Reddick said, no, not only am I going to make this a fumble, it's going to be our ball, but, the way I hit his arm, I'm going to knock him out of this game, and it'll just be over for here. We don't have to worry about luck. This guy
I mean,
ain't
there's
do nothing.
Really no way to chop that play didn't end the game, because he puts Purdy out of the game and forced a turnover on the same damn play. Like, everything went to plan for that play for the Philadelphia Eagles.
He nailed it.
100%.
So we need to chill the fuck out on Brock Purdy. He ain't that good. He's done some nice things. Let me not just completely shit on the kid. He did some nice things, but he's also made some horrible throws. So for people to just say, oh, yeah, he's a 2023 starter for the San Francisco 49ers, pump the brakes here, man. Pump the
Michael,
brakes.
what do you say to the folks? And we had this a week ago, 2 weeks ago, who gave up a 2 for Brock Purdy in Superflex
Yikes.
Dynasty.
Yikes. I'm the guy on the other end of the spectrum. One of my favorite trades I've been making the last couple of weeks that Adam and I have talked about on our show is I don't think Zach Wilson is all as bad as people make out to him. Like, we're on two opposite ends of the spectrum here. I don't think he's as bad as people are making him out to be. He's also had some moments. Now, he hasn't been good, but he also does carry number 2 overall draft capital, which, whether we like it or not, the NFL seems to think is going to matter. That's why Sam Darnold gets 75 chances. That's why Carson Wentz gets 18 teams to play for before the NFL finally says, fuck it. So in Dynasty anyways, I've been trading like any like second or third plus a Zach Wilson I can get. Like, I'll send my Brock Purdy away. Like, you go ahead. If you want to ride that train, I'll make the bet on another shitty quarterback, but I'll also get a draft pick on top of it. And it doesn't really matter what the draft pick is. I'm cool.
There you go. Josh, you got some chill the fuck out candidates as well.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you're a 49er fan or a believer in the team, especially in the offense, like, just chill. I mean, you know, we know the team is good. We know the team has weapons. You know, I fully expected Christian McCaffrey to have himself a good game, and he did. But obviously, when you bring in Josh Johnson, you're not going to get much out of Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle. Like, I think Kittle had one really solid catch in this game, but not much else of anything. So, you know, just from an offensive perspective with the 49ers, there's nothing. Don't just
were you sober enough? I believe it was actually a Purdy play where Kittle was butt naked in the flat and just
he was wide open. I remember that one. Yeah, and he looked the other way to Ayuk, and I'm like,
that was
watching this play, and I'm like,
that was Brock Purdy though, wasn't it? That was early enough that was Purdy, and because I remember being concerned at that point, like, oh, Brock Purdy ain't it.
I mean, you even saw Kittle. He's like,
he looked at the sideline.
Hello? Get me the football. There's nobody around me.
When Kittle looked at the sideline and put his hands on his helmet, because a few weeks ago, Josh, we made the joke that Kittle might fight to keep Purdy as his quarterback because of all the touchdowns. I think all that went out the door on butt.
He said, fuck this guy. I want the goddamn football.
Man, I could just turn around and ask him, George, what do you think?
Yeah, there you go.
He ain't about it. What's a real quarterback?
But yeah,
and Josh, you were going to talk about the Eagles offense as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously it didn't throw near as much as I had anticipated, and I think a lot of other people anticipated, because, again, this was a vaunted run defense, right? We weren't going to run the football. And, you know, the last time the Eagles went up against the best statistically run defense in the NFL was the Titans. We hung 35 on them, and we threw for 380 yards. But we didn't have a ton of rushing yards that game. The Eagles basically said, you know what? You guys don't have a quarterback. We're just going to ground this out. We're going to eat the clock. We're going to make y'all our bitch. And that's exactly what they did. They ran for 144 yards. So, you know, I'm not really taking much out of this from a pass game perspective. Like, you know, Jalen Hurts still got his rushing touchdown a little bit later. So, you know, that inflated his fantasy value a little bit. But outside of that, like, you know, I'm not upset that Devonta Smith only had 36 yards. I'm not upset that A.J. Brown had 28 yards. I'm not upset that Dallas Goedert had 23 yards. Like, does it suck for fantasy? Sure. But that's what you get with this offense. And that's what Sirianni really has done all season. When the defense gives you this, they go this way, right? Exactly. And they've done it all season long. So I think that we just really need to, like, calm down on this Eagles offense in terms of, you know, oh, we expect them to do this. Sure. They're not gonna. They're gonna do whatever the fuck they want. And they're gonna do what the defense gives them. So
yeah, makes a lot of sense. Josh, just keep rolling with it. What's your fantasy takeaway from this game?
Whoever is the starting running back in this offense in 2023, and I don't know if it's going to be Miles Sanders. I hope it is, because I like him in Philly, and I think he does a lot of really good things for them. They're going to have a ton of fantasy value. They ran the football down the throat of the quote unquote the best run defense in the league. Statistically, they were number 2, but this was a great defensive line. They held everybody to this. They haven't given up a 100-yard rusher since 2021 or whatever it is. Like, so Like
Who
Eagles,
cares?
yeah, Eagles did their thing. This team is built to run the football, and when you have the starting running back for a top 5 rushing offense, you're going to get a ton of fantasy points. Plain and simple. They're not going to throw him the I mean, Kenny Gainwell looked like a fucking star yesterday.
So that's the question I wanted to ask you, Josh, because earlier this season on this show, I'm pretty sure, but we do so many damn shows together, I asked you, what if Gainwell is the guy next year? And you were lukewarm at best. Has that changed for you? If Sanders is gone, are you fully in on Gainwell if he's the starter? It sounds like yes, but I just wanted to ask.
I mean, if he is the starter, then yeah, absolutely, I'll be in on him. I don't think he is, though. I think what they
that's
saw,
what you said last time as well.
Yeah, I think what we saw yesterday was by having Gainwell in the game, it opened up the offense to keep the defense honest because they don't throw the football to Miles Sanders. He has 25 targets on the year, if I'm not mistaken. Gainwell is their passing down back. So when he is in the game, the defense has to respect that. And the Eagles run a ton of RPOs. So that's going to, again, it's going to keep the defense honest because if you're faking the handoff to Gainwell, oh shit, maybe we're going to catch him out on the flat. They're going to throw this down. Nope. He's going to jaunt for 17 yards.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what you saw with this game plan. It kept the 49ers honest. And, you know, I preached this last week. The 49ers struggle against RPOs. They do. Those are the games that they've lost. They lost to Chicago. They lost to Atlanta. What did their offense do? Those offenses run RPOs. What do the Eagles do? They run RPOs.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it went according to plan. Michael, finish us up on this game with your fantasy takeaway.
So just quickly on the Miles Sanders, Kenny Gainwell thing, I'm with you, Josh. Like, I would be interested to see who the actual running back is next year, whether they bring Miles back or they go somewhere else. But Gainwell has caught my attention the last couple of weeks. Very intriguing option next year, depending how it shakes out. But also with the Miles Sanders thing, has there been any more of a disappointing, boring 1,300-yard, 11 touchdown season on the ground from a running back in history? Like, I'm a Miles Sanders fan, and even I just kind of feel like this whole year, you look at it, you just go, meh, who cares? Like, it really didn't matter. You look at the final stats and you go, holy shit, he had 1,300 yards and 11 touchdowns.
259 carries was the thing that threw me off.
Yeah, that's what really shocked me with Sanders this year was the amount of carries. And we talked about that on Wednesday during our accountability for the Eagles. Like, I did not see that. But again, he stayed healthy.
Yeah.
And that was the big thing. You know, the first 3 years of his career, he's consistently missing games. He didn't.
I would say the other big thing is scoring a touchdown. I think that was a real improvement from 21 to 22. I feel like that really helped his numbers.
It's that positive TD regression, right?
Yeah.
Yes. I will say my takeaway, though, from the fantasy space is just about Jalen Hurts and where he slots in your quarterback ranks. I don't think any redraft dynasty there's a case for him to be the QB1 overall. But I definitely think after yesterday and what we saw in the evening game, which we'll get to here in a minute, I think there's a very strong case if you want to take Jalen Hurts as a QB2 in redraft or in dynasty. I think you're probably correct. Like, that's a guy that I want just about everywhere. So Jalen Hurts has worked his way up from me not believing in him at all to holy hell, now I'll give away my firstborn kid. You know, just get to shake Jalen's hand. Ask him how he's doing.
I like it. All right, guys. And so that brings us into the perfect segue. We had the late night game. Went exactly as I told you it would. Kansas City by 3, 23-20. I basically felt like this was going to be the score. So I don't want to toot my own horn, but yes, I was absolutely fucking right last week. Michael, we call it the hangover. It's the biggest head scratcher of the game. What'd you have?
This game is going to be forever tainted by refereeing, right or wrong. Right or wrong, whichever side of the one you want to go on.
It's perception is reality. So no matter how you feel about it, the perception is what happened. So.
And that stinks because it actually was a very entertaining game. It was a nice slugfest back and forth between very good teams. It was the perfect nightcap. The Eagles game, even though I'm an Eagles fan, let's all be real, that was pretty boring. 49ers couldn't throw the football. The Eagles just kind of took it to them on both sides of the ball. So this one, to actually see it go back and forth, and the Chiefs have a lead, and then you're like, well, Joe Burrow's come behind before, and then you kind of see it, and it slowly happens, and they start making big plays. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins going off and making big, gigantic plays was very fun. But the hangover part is going to be the fact that all we're going to talk about is the Joseph Asai push. We're going to talk about some of the Chiefs having a 5th down and then getting a defensive holding on 5th down. It's going to be the hangover for the whole thing.
Yeah. It was a rough way to end the game. And I watch games with my wife. She sits in the living room, typically works on something else, but watches games. And she always manages to look up for herself at the worst possible time. And I could not remember who it was for the Philadelphia Eagles where something went wrong in one of their losses. And she just had such empathy and felt terrible. Watching Joseph Asai have a mental breakdown on the sideline, I don't think we need to show so many clips of that. That was rough. As a 40-year-old dude with a kid, I'm like, okay, I don't need to see this man's worst moment in front of my eyes, and it hit my wife hard too as well. So I agree. The hangover from that game is the refs, but for the hangover for me is just going to be seeing the worst day of Joseph Asai's life. That is not something I needed to be a part of.
Right. And I don't know what it came out. I haven't seen anything yet, but that knee injury that he suffered on that play after, the hyperextension didn't look good. So I remember typing it out in the Discord. We were talking about it. I go, how bad would it be to not only tear your ACL, but also lose the game on the exact same play?
I haven't heard an update on that one yet either. So that was rough, Josh.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of recollection of this game.
I was going to say, full disclosure, Josh partied his ass off after an Eagles win, rightfully so. So if Josh is quiet on this game, I'll be careful about kicking it to you, Josh. So
Josh is the reason why they put Crisco on the poles in Philadelphia, right?
Guess what? They didn't Crisco the poles in Florida, so Josh was climbing them.
He's good. They don't know about the Crisco down there in Florida.
Exactly. That definitely stayed a little longer at the bar last night, not going to lie.
I love it. Josh, get us into your shot of espresso, then the quality performance in this game.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a couple of things, honestly. The first being Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He earned that contract yesterday. And that's kind of what you love from a football perspective about Mahomes and this Chiefs offense, is that they're going to find ways to beat you. And, it's not always going to be the star wide receiver. It could be, the third string wide receiver. It could be, the quiet guy that, really just goes deep. But MVS actually showed some hands yesterday. I was kind of surprised by that, not going to lie, because he's got a history of bad drops throughout his career. And, I'm happy because, he's a Florida kid. He went to USF, which is not far from where I live. And so definitely happy to see him, getting a chance to go to the Super Bowl.
Other than Travis Kelce, I do enjoy seeing this Chiefs offense operating very similar to what you're seeing from the Eagles of, we're going to take what you give us. So some weeks it's going to be Juju. Other weeks you're going to leave MVS open on these crossing routes and we're just going to take them. This is certainly not my shot of espresso based on the stat line, but it was nice to see Sky Moore with 7 targets in such an important game. It's going to be interesting to see if they can get him more involved, because he was one of my favorite receivers coming out of the draft last year, Michael. I know you're a big Dynasty Debbie guy. Should we expect more, less, a better second season from Sky Moore? What are your thoughts there?
No, he's fucking done for me.
Oh my God. Okay. Hold on. Before you get into it, I want to point out, this is why I like to surround myself with smart people, because I 100% be like, maybe I should throw some offers out for Sky Moore. So.
Please don't.
Okay.
Let me save you. He didn't do anything this year. I mean, he had a good punt return, and you were right. He did have 7 targets. He got 3 balls for 13 yards.
For 13 yards, yeah.
Juju was hurt. Marcus Kemp was out there playing, for fuck's sake. Like, I had to look up.
I'm looking at the stat sheet right now. I'm like, who the fuck is Marcus Kemp? Where did this come from?
Jody Fortson was out there playing out wide because they were out of receivers. That's how bad Sky Moore is. That there were still packages where they're like, yo, we're not even going to put Sky Moore out here.
We're good with you, bro.
We're going to put Jody Fortson out playing out wide, or we're going to put Blake Bell in the slot. It was disgusting. So the fact it's the biggest game, the guy has had all year as a rookie. We can't count him as a rookie no more. I mean, you're in game, 18, 19 at this point. Still can't do shit.
Okay.
With Patrick Mahomes, right? And a not mobile Patrick Mahomes, one that has to stand there and throw the ball, and he still like doesn't get trusted enough to even be on the field at times. I'm done with Sky Moore, man. Like if I could get any kind of second in Dynasty for him, see ya, gone.
Gotcha.
Get him off my team. Like I want to get out before it really hits.
I may have him now. I need to go the other way. I got to look in leagues where I actually
sell him
got
everywhere.
him in.
I think I only have him in one league, and it happens to be one where I'm in with you, Ryan. So I'm kind of like, all right, I got to go a different direction here.
Don't send him to me. If we would have never done this show, you probably could have took me. But yeah, and then Gator's telling me that I need to go out and get 100% share.
There it is.
So Josh almost certainly knew what my shot of espresso was going to be, and it has nothing to do with what happened on the field. And our buddy Czar may have actually perfectly predicted it as well. The Travis Kelce national TV shit talking to end that game was chef's kiss for me. I immediately sent Josh and Joe a text like, did you see this shit? First and foremost, fuck the Cincy mayor and fuck all the haters with the Burrowhead nonsense. But my guy Kelce calling the Cincinnati mayor a jabroni and telling him to know your role and shut your mouth. I know my guy Joel, who's a big WWE guy, had to have loved that. But the Burrowhead kiss my ass this is Mahomes' house, was absolutely perfect because I'm not going to lie. Josh, we've had this discussion. Michael, you may not have been privy to it. Grew up a big Eagles fan. Named my son Donovan, was a huge Donovan McNabb guy. I don't have a team now. I didn't like how things shook out with Donovan McNabb, but I am happy for Andy Reid. I liked Mahomes coming out of college. So I have no problem admitting I am a bandwagon Chiefs fan. I am not your lifelong guy. I am 100% a bandwagon Chiefs fan, not fair weather, because I'm upset when they lose and I'm still talk about them when they lose, but I am a bandwagon Chiefs fan. So I got bothered by this whole Burrowhead thing. And Josh, I mentioned this last week. It started for me when people started really jumping on Burrow's jock over the, I guess you better send some refunds. And I'm like, bro, you're going to Kansas City. What are you happy? Like, that comment didn't sit well for me. And I know he didn't say the Burrowhead thing. None of this sat well for me. And I knew it was going to be billboard material for the Kansas City Chiefs. And then the mayor chiming in with the paternity thing. It was all bullshit, and I'm glad it played out the way it did. We are in a day and age where Patrick Mahomes should not be disrespected by anybody. You're asking for trouble at that point. And so I was very happy Travis Kelce stepping in, my favorite player stepping in to shut everybody up. That was my favorite part of the game by far.
Man, I'm with you though. I'm not a Chiefs fan. I had no stake in this game. I do kind of always just pull for Andy Reid. I kind of like Andy, for everything that he did for the Eagles. Mm-hmm. And then Travis Kelce is hilarious, right? The podcast he does with his brother, New Heights,
it's
fantastic.
Amazing.
It's going to be fantastic. Now we got the Kelce Bowl or the Andy Reid Bowl or whatever you want to call it in the Super Bowl. But the whole Bengals thing, I get it. I do kind of feel like they got screwed over in that Bills game. Where they were like, hey, if the Bills and the Chiefs make the conference finals game here, we're going to have it at a neutral site and all this. And it's going like the Bengals actually had a legit shot at being the number 1 seed or the number 2 seed if that game gets played out. So I do feel like the NFL kind of screwed them in that. So I did see the slight, but it almost went too far where it was annoying as hell, right? You had the Burrowhead like you were talking about. You had the mayor. You had Eli Apple out there being Eli Apple, and now, of course, we start the tradition of dunking on Eli Apple. I was going to say, yes,
the wonderful February tradition of dunking on Eli Apple.
It is amazing. But even just kind of being partial, like I felt it went too long, and that's also why I tweeted out right after the game, Burrowhead, huh? I was told it was Burrowhead. So to see Travis Kelce also take offense to it, to see the entire Chiefs organization take offense to it, like the Mahomes tweet afterwards with the gift, Pete Weber, the bowler. Who do you think you are?
I'm him.
I thought it was fantastic. So just to come back at him, I don't think you could have ended it. You had a great game. I did say it kind of got tainted a little bit by the referees, and that's what we're going to talk about. But after the fact, right, to see the back and forth and the Kelce and the Mahomes thing, the way the Chiefs took offense to it was fantastic.
I love that Chris Jones finally got himself a postseason sack. Woo! And not just 1, 2.
Right, he
Like,
dominated.
Yeah, he
That was Chris
absolutely
Jones's game. Let's not
dominated
mince
this
words
game.
about
Yeah.
that. That was
Well, and even Frank Clark got in. I think he had a sack and a half too. So, and it goes to the offensive line issues, right? You know, I think back to the meme, you know, when the Bengals selected Jamar Chase instead of Penei Sewell.
Yes.
And that meme came to fruition today or yesterday.
Yeah.
Because without Jonah Williams, without Kappa at guard, the Chiefs front made the Bengals' life hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they played their ass off in that Bills game. And I wonder if that was the emotional baggage carrying over from what they last dealt with the Bills. And then if it was just a letdown heading into this week. But like I said, what a game by Chris Jones. He looked like a man amongst boys out there. It was absolutely ridiculous. Michael, keep us going with your chill the fuck out for this game.
The Burrow thing, people need to chill the fuck out, right? There was a point where they're talking about, oh, you should be considering him as the number one QB. You know, he's pushing Mahomes. It's a whole fucking feel-good thing. Oh, he's definitely above Josh Allen. I mean, look what happened last week. He's the number 2 quarterback in there. People need to chill the fuck out on Joe Burrow. And also there's this other weird thing with Ohio State fans, at least some of these Ohio State fans, where they still claiming him. Like this.
Oh, it's like the Bama fans claiming Jalen Hurts, right?
Oh, Jesus. But that's different. Jalen Hurts took them to a national championship.
Yeah.
At least in the Joe Burrow threw 40 fucking passes throughout his entire Ohio State career in mop-up duty, and they act like, oh, yeah, he's doing Ohio State proud. It's like, no, he left your fucking school and went to Louisiana.
I saw a great quote about that this morning. So, Michael, I'm originally from Northeast Ohio, so I am seeing that like front row bullshit. But I saw a great quote from someone firing back. They said, Joe Burrow attended OSU. He played football at LSU.
That's 100% right, man. It is like having an ex-girlfriend who like ends up dating Channing Tatum, and you're like, yeah, see?
Yeah, I fucked Channing Tatum. What?
See how good I am?
Yeah.
It's like, no, she left your ass, bro.
Yeah, that's not how it works, bro.
I don't get it. But the whole Joe Burrow thing, people are getting a little bit over his skis. He's good. He's very good. But
he is.
At least in the dynasty space, it was like, oh, yeah, he's clear number 2 quarterback. You should be taking him 2 overall. Pump the brakes, man. Josh Allen's still really good. I just talked about Jalen Hurts earlier. Also needs to be in that consideration. And people act like Justin Herbert just died. Like he's just dead and gone. Justin Herbert is fantastic at football. He's extremely talented. Joe Lombardi is an absolutely horrendous offensive coordinator, and his ass is on the street now. So,
well, Michael, it's funny you mentioned that. Josh, could you maybe shine some light on Michael's Justin Herbert take for us today?
Yeah, Ian Rappaport just reported that Kellen Moore is expected to be named the Chargers' new offensive coordinator.
Fucking better than Joe Lombardi.
Yeah. I have to say,
I feel like this is going to solidify the Chargers in the market for wide receiver help.
Please.
Because they need some more speed on that offense.
Yeah.
Please, like a Quentin Johnson in the draft would be epic for him. You're going to have a tough time finding it in free agency because this free agent wide receiver class is god-awful unless you're a big Allen Lazard fan. Then congratulations. But they're going to have to do something in the draft, plain and simple.
Yeah, I immediately, when I read Josh typing that into the show sheet, I immediately felt myself over-projecting the Chargers.
There it is. It's just going to translate.
It's going to follow Kellen Moore around.
Justin Herbert's going to have like 5,700 yards in your projection for next year.
That tends to be how bad it gets because Josh looks at my Cowboys projections every year as an Eagles fan. He's like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? But then he raises his projections because of me. And so we're both just terribly, terribly wrong. So
shit, I'm going to have to draft Austin Eckler 101.
That's essentially what it is.
He's getting 40 touchdowns next year, according to Ryan.
Yep. Josh left himself out of the chill the fuck out because he paid no attention to the game. So we're going to jump into the fantasy. And I think my takeaway is not a surprise. I guess he's only up 1 spot from every show I've talked about this season so far. But Travis Kelce's my 101. I don't want to fucking hear it anymore. I don't need to guess at running back and see who's going to get hurt. I'm going to take the guy who gives me a 5 to 10 point advantage every single week at his position. if you are in a draft with me next year and Travis Kelce is not my first pick and it's not Superflex, you come on this show and call me out personally. He will be the only person I select in the first round of any draft unless something crazy happens this offseason. If they go
unless you're in a draft with Joel, right? Who ends up taking it before
me
you.
and Joel will be fighting for it. It'll be as Gators ready to tell everybody. First of all, I had already predicted them as the 2022 Super Bowl champion, so that was already wrong. But yeah, clearly I'm drafting Travis Kelce and then the entire Los Angeles Chargers offense as my fantasy team next year. But
you're ready to get hurt again by Keenan Allen, huh?
I'm always ready to get hurt by Keenan Allen every single day of the week. And then the last one, and I'm gonna let you guys chime in on this one. Josh, I know you didn't watch a ton of the game, but this has kind of been a theme for me for this offseason. I am concerned, and I understand the offensive line is bad, and we saw that from Joe Burrow, but I am concerned that Joe Mixon is trending towards done at 26 years old. The efficiency isn't there. They're bringing in Samaje Perine. I don't know how much I trust Joe Mixon on a contending dynasty team heading into the 2023 season, Michael.
He has been even before these games. He was not bad, just gross.
No,
just the whole year.
Find the end zone. He was bad.
Right. I look at a lot of stuff I do through a best ball lens and just how far he was down on the best ball sheet as far as having consistent weeks or above average weeks, spike weeks. It was very eye-opening. And I remember he had that one game where it was like, oh shit, yeah, he's back.
Yep, 55 points.
I don't know, man. I've always been a big fan of Joe Mixon, and I've always been extremely frustrated in his usage, right? And even yesterday was Joe would come in, it seemed like for a play, and then he's running to the sideline. He spent more time running to the sideline back and forth than he did actually running down the field with the ball in his hands. It was very strange and odd. I do wonder, and I don't want to spend the draft capital, right? Like if I can get off Joe Mixon, I'm going to get the fuck off Joe Mixon before. But I'm going to find the one guy out there who's going like, you know, if he ever got cut and got like a full workload somewhere else, even on a shittier team, a shittier offense, and was able to actually establish a rhythm and wasn't doing this Samaje Perine bullshit back and forth, like could he have one more year of 1,400 yards and double-digit touchdowns?
That's fair.
I think so. I think he could have like one Leonard Fournette like esque from 2021 type season in him if we actually used him right and threw him the football and gave him the workload. But the Bengals aren't it. Like as far as if you're a Joe Mixon fan, if he stays there, he's on your dynasty teams. If he stays with the Bengals, like get him the fuck off your team because they don't want to use him that way. I don't think they're going to change how they use it. It's still going to be a weird RB committee.
I bought him in a lot of dynasties this year, and thankfully bought him before the 55-point game, so I at least got that out of him. But that almost feels like worth the price of admission at this point, and now I just want to get right back out, Josh.
Yeah, I've been out on Mixon for a while. It's just the efficiency for me. Like I don't want to deal with it. So
it's just plain and simple, right to the fucking point.
You guys have already summed it up. I don't need.
No, it's a really, really good point. So yeah, just watching that game, I felt like I like to tell you guys about my leagues. I know nobody cares about your fantasy league, but the same league where I decided I was out on AJ Brown, I actually already had Mixon in that league. It's a 3-keeper. It's not a dynasty league. So I moved Brown for a bunch of draft picks thinking, oh, I'll just keep Joe Mixon. I'll be fine. I don't feel fine anymore. I'm now panicking and need to figure out what the hell I'm going to do with my third keeper. But thankfully I have a long ass off season to do it.
Where are you at on T Higgins? Let me ask you that real quick, just because this is another game that I watched where T Higgins legit -1 double team catch that Twitter went wild for. T Higgins again outshined Jamar Chase. Like T Higgins again out targeted him, outproduced him, got in the end zone. T Higgins is really fucking good at football, but where are you at with him? This whole T Higgins Jamar Chase debate.
So it goes back a lot to what you said about the AJ Brown thing, where I feel like they're taking what's given to them. For a while there, we didn't think that was going to be the case. We literally on this show were saying, that Joe Burrow is just going to force the ball to Jamar Chase, but it seems like Burrow has since backed off of that. So, I mean, Higgins with 11 targets this game. I was cooling on Higgins. It's hard to say mentally. If you just ask me where I am on Higgins, I'm not nearly as high on him as I was coming into this season. I do look at them mentally, and I need to go back and, kind of take everything in. I look at them as very much a 1 and a 2, not the 1A, 1B thing. But like you brought up, in the big moments, T. Higgins has been the 1B, if not the 1A in these situations. So from a dynasty standpoint, where are you on Higgins? I think it's a great question for someone who lives in the dynasty.
I'm a gigantic T. Higgins fan, and I think they're a lot closer, Chase and Higgins, than people want to admit. I still have Jamar Chase as no question about it, the wide receiver too, just because of how explosive he is. The one thing I can give to Jamar Chase is at any given moment, he can take 60, 70 yards and just make a massive play. T. Higgins, yes, he does get deep and he does get some shots over the top, but it is not the same thing. Like you get the ball in Jamar Chase's hand on a bubble screen, he's a threat to take it to the house. You can do that with T. Higgins, but I don't think anybody thinks he's going 80, 90 yards to the
It's not the plays they're running or calling for him.
Correct.
I don't know. I've seen him disappear in enough games that I'm getting concerned about him. But it was such a great question, Michael, because it's something I've talked about with a Bengals friend of mine where I'm like, Higgins is a 2. Like, and maybe I need to go back and re-examine some things because to me, I definitely have cooled on Higgins to the point where I don't think I'll be in on him in any league next year because of his draft capital. I just don't think I'm going to be on the right spot for that.
I think for me personally, a lot of the pushback I got, and I understand it, is we did have 2 games this year where T. Higgins was active and playing, but he played like a total of 7 snaps between those 2 games.
Yeah,
like,
the two.
You had that one infamous one where he tweaked his hamstring in the pregame, and then they told him not to go out there, and he snuck on the field anyways. And then once they found out, they put him on the bench and took away his helmet. But if you were to take those 2 games out, I was doing a little bit of Iowa math here, which isn't the greatest thing. But you take those 2 games out, I mean, you're looking at a guy who scored 18 fantasy points per game at the wide receiver position.
Very interesting.
Which is,
I was going to, I almost walked right into your trap here. I was going to bring up the big difference in their points per game. And you're absolutely right that if you erase those 2 games, man, I almost walked right into that one for you, Michael.
It's very interesting, though. I mean, if you're talking about if I take those 2 games out, I know you could probably do it with a couple other players. Like Jalen Waddle had some games where he only played a handful of snaps and then went out. I mean, we could do this for everybody. But if I just look at it and I go, man, what happens if he's actually ruled out for those games and it doesn't count against his points per game points? I'm going like, man, if he scores 18 fantasy points this year in 2022, I think people have a very different perspective of T. Higgins. Like, I don't think he ever gets above Jamar Chase, but we do have a scenario where they can't afford his ass, and he's going to be
we've been talking about that for weeks.
He is going to be a massive prize on the free agent market and going to be somebody's alpha. So, like, could you imagine a scenario where in a year or two, like this is Justin Herbert's number 1 receiver? T. Higgins.
Yeah,
that's
exactly why
he would have an opportunity to be that guy who's getting 150, 160 targets like Stephon Diggs or Devontae Adams. And I think if you fed T. Higgins 150 or 160 targets, I mean, you're talking about him in the same breath that we're talking about Jefferson and Chase. Like he has that talent and ability. So I think it's just a fascinating case, but it was interesting to see yesterday's game. It's just one more game where he kind of outshined Jamar Chase outside of a highlight reel catch that Chase made.
And I was shit talking Higgins to friends before the game. And then for him to have that game, it felt like a game he needed. And so, like I said, I look forward to being wrong on this because I was high on T. Higgins. The season cooled me on him, not to the extent it did Joe Mixon, but I look forward to being wrong on him, Josh.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about T. Higgins plenty over the last 3 years. I mean, Joe and I, we talk all the time. The dude's the second coming of AJ Green, like very similar play styles. They can do so many similar things on the field, and it almost feels poetic that he ended up in Cincinnati. Yeah. But yeah, like, there's going to be a lot of T. Higgins talk this offseason simply because the Bengals, selling the naming rights to the stadium, they're trying to bring in more cash. They need to re-sign Joe Burrow. But this has always been a team that pinches pennies. Like they're not going, very similar to the Raiders in that front. Like they don't bring in the same type of cash flow that, the Eagles bring in, that the Rams bring in, that the Giants and the Cowboys bring in. So they have to be smart with their money. They know that they need to pay Joe Burrow. They know they need to pay Jamar Chase. I think as much as they want to be able to pay T. Higgins as well, they're not going to be able to. And and he's up for an extension after this year. So you can very much see a scenario where they move him to, whomever. The Bears, I think, are a prime scenario because they swung and missed on.
I'd say that is not what Michael wanted to hear.
Claypool. Yeah, no, I mean, look, I don't want to see him in Chicago. I'd much rather see him somewhere else.
Oh, you do? My apologies.
Please get Justin Fields some fucking help.
Okay. Well, I don't think you get 150 targets if he's in Chicago. Just saying.
Well, and that's the point I'm getting at. Like, yes, we need Justin Fields to have some weapons.
Yes,
and I'm all for trading some wide receiver there, but I don't want to see T. Higgins go there because I feel like that, as great as he is, it just caps his ceiling because they're not going to throw the football enough.
I get it, man. I would love to see him in Chicago. And I don't think he gets 150 targets. Well, he might just because there's nothing else there, man. I bought into Darnell Mooney this year because it's like, well, there's nothing else there. It's got to be the Darnell Mooney show.
Yeah. We just talked about that on our wide receiver show last week. You're absolutely right there.
But please, for the love of God, get Justin Fields some help, please. I beg of you. He's fantastic. That's the quarterback Ohio State fans should be all over. Yeah, and writing his jock because he actually played for him.
All right, guys. Before I get us out of here and before I let these Eagles fans talk about how much they're going to win next week, just a reminder, the show is brought to you by Manscaped. You can get 20% off your order and free shipping at manscaped.com if you use promo code Club Fantasy. Ton of great products out there. It's not just razors and things like that. Go and check them out. Support the show. That's all we're going to ask of you right now. Not a full read. Josh, your Philadelphia Eagles are in the Super Bowl, but I'm going to let Michael go first because they're his Eagles as well, and then you can get us out of here. Michael, what are your thoughts on the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Kansas City Chiefs in Arizona?
I'm just happy to be here, man. I'm just happy to be here. We're going to take this one day at a time, not get over my skis, not get too worked up. Actually, the big thing is if we played the Bengals, I'd probably be a little bit more aggressive on like, man, I think the Eagles could really take it to them. The fact we're playing Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and your 101, Travis Kelce, scares the living fucking shit out of me because those guys are good. Those guys are really good. So I don't have any predictions. I just hope it's actually a good game. Kind of like when we played the Patriots. I'm praying we don't get embarrassed or blown out. And if anything extra helps, anything extra happens, it's starting to look like we might win, then I'll really start to get jacked up. It's going to be like, I'm just waiting for Brandon Graham to get a strip sack on Patrick Mahomes to end the game and seal it for me.
Get a hold of Michael at halftime. He'll have a prediction.
I'll let you know after that.
Josh.
For me, this is going to come down to the same thing that it came down to this past week. It's going to be the Eagles defensive line against the Chiefs offensive line. Their star left tackle, Orlando Brown, allowed the fourth most pressures amongst all left tackles, actually among all tackles in the NFL this year. The Eagles, through 2 playoff games and the whole season, have 78 combined sacks. That is the third most when you include playoffs all time.
Wow.
Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat are going to fucking feast.
Yeah.
And when you rattle Mahomes, just like any quarterback, you got to get him on the run. On a bum ankle, that's not good. That's all I'm going to say.
All right. He's way more bullish than I am.
So, Josh, are you ready to make a prediction? I'm torn. I was not ready. I'm with Michael. I'm not ready to make a prediction. I'll make a prediction by next week's show, but I need to dig into this a little bit.
I'm not ready to make a prediction.
Okay.
I mean, look, the fan in me is going to say the Eagles. Let's be honest. Like, I'm not dumb, but this is an Andy Reid revenge game. But let's face it. I mean, he got run out of town, and you can say whether it was warranted or not. Maybe the team needed a change, etc.
It was. Come on.
No, look. They needed a change, and when you have the same coach for a long period of time, sometimes things get stale, and you need to make that change. But
100%.
Andy Reid and Jeffrey Lurie, they still have a great relationship. Andy Reid was very vocal on getting Doug Peterson the job with Philly. So, I think that Andy Reid wants to prove in front of all of the Philly fans that, I could have gotten you a Super Bowl too. And, he's going to
You bastards.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, he'll say all the right things leading up to it, but behind the scenes, this is personal for him. Right.
Yeah.
And it's going to be personal for a lot of people in the front office on both sides of the ball, with Travis going against Jason, even though they're not actually going head to head, but like it's going to be a damn fun game. And I don't think it's going to be a blowout one way or the other. Both these offenses are absolutely fantastic. I still think the Eagles have a much better defense than the Chiefs have, but it's going to be a close game. I don't think it's going to be more than, 3 to 7 points, honestly.
I'm pretty excited to see too how many downloads go up for Meek Mill's Dreams and Nightmares, right?
Right.
You have the Eagles make the Super Bowl, that guy's got to make $1 billion.
Exactly.
It's gonna be the most played song on Spotify for the next 2 weeks.
Without a doubt. Meek Mills, get that bag, buddy. That's awesome. All right, folks, that's the end of the show. A little behind the scenes. I said, I don't know if we're going to have an hour here, and we did an hour and 10 minutes like Michael said we would. So absolutely perfect. As you guys know, we are still live every single Wednesday. So only week we take off is the week of Thanksgiving. We're going to be going over the last 8 teams from last year's draft, just kind of recapping what we got right and what we got wrong in our look back series. That's going to be on Wednesday. On Thursday, we are doing our last accountability on our rankings. It's going to be our tight end show. So Travis Kelce show. We can just call it that. I don't think there's anything else. Josh, if you put anybody else on the thumbnail, there's literally something wrong with you. They'll maybe throw Cole Kmet on there, just waste.
I might put Evan Ingram just for shits and giggles.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. As far as articles, guys, we still have our betting articles, Blurred Lines with Joel Worth, and our DFS Academy A-list with Austin and Magnolia. Those are going to be coming out one final time coming up to the Super Bowl bets. And we've started a new series here at Club Fantasy, our How to Fix series. We have fixed 3 teams already, the Chicago Bears, the Houston Texans, and the Indianapolis Colts. And I'm going to have 2 more of those articles dropping for you this week. Josh, I can't remember who yours is about. It's the New England Patriots and the
Rams.
Oh, and the Los Angeles Rams. So I'll have those dropping for you guys this week. So keep an eye out. Make sure you're following Club Fantasy on all the socials at Club Fantasy FFL. The website is clubfantasyffl.com. Always remember that defense wins championships. Offense wins fantasy football. Backup running backs are supposed to be more efficient. And tune in next week for a very special episode of Mock It Like It's Hot. We're not going to recap the Pro Bowl or the flag football game or whatever the hell it is. So we're going to do a mock draft for you guys. So we will be back next Monday, mock drafting it up. I don't know what the settings will be yet, but we're going to have fun with it. Have a great Monday, guys.